What is going on, Queen City Reefers? Gotta make sure this is not all messed up because I need y'all to read and pay attention to it. Come on, y'all. So if you're watching, you're subscribed, hit the like button. If you're watching, you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe, hit that like button. If you're watching, you didn't want to hit the like button, let me know why. So today's video, we're gonna discuss the innovative marine SR Pro 2 80 gallon. So SR for shallow reef, I guess 2 for their second generation of it, and it's an 80 gallon all-in-one tank. All-in-one, well, all-in-one means all the filtration system is in the back. I'm gonna bring you up close. If you haven't been keeping up with my videos, then you most likely already saw this part. But for those that are new to the channel, welcome, and I'm gonna go through this tank as best as I can, as fast as I can, so that you're all caught up. Once I go through this tank and tell you all about it, one of the main topics after we do a quick update on this tank is reefing hard. One of the things I would like for you to let me know though is on these topics, should I dedicate the video just to the topic? Should I include what I'm doing right now, which is a quick update on the tank, and then discuss the topic? Should I be, you know, here in front of the camera the whole time talking to you, or should I do what I see other people do where they record the tank and they go back and forth while they're discussing the topic? I'm really curious to find out whether you prefer seeing my face. Maybe we can make the tank a background with my face in it, or you just want to see the tank. All right, let me turn the camera around. I'm going to actually show you what's going on here on the other side. Without further ado, let's roll that intro. Here is the tank in all its glory. So here, I'm gonna leave a link to this tank in the description below. I'm not affiliated with the link. Hopefully one day I do start getting affiliated with some links. So that may be another way for you to support this channel would be through clicking on those links if you're interested in some of these items. So the all-in-one, let's cover that first. What is an all-in-one? All-in-one means that the tank itself will hold a filtration place within the same tank itself. You've heard of sump filtrations, which is normally there will be some plumbing that goes from the back overflow to the bottom where all the filtration would happen in a sump area below. And we can cover that on a different video when I'm giving you an update on the other tank that does have a sump filter. And the back of this ends up being where all the filtration is happening. So let me get some light in here so I can kind of show you what's going on right here. This tank itself will have 2 different overflow areas where the water is going to come in from the main part of the display, which is going to be on each corner. So the other corner will look exactly like this. Is just a very tight spot for me to get in here, but I guess I can quickly show you. So there is the other one. Right now, what I'm using is a media tower that holds carbon in the middle, GFO at the bottom, and then filter floss at the very top, which I find it to be the easiest to really be able to remove and replace in there, right? Then the water goes into the next chamber, which is where I hold the Sea Shark skimmers. This is the smaller one of the 2, and then this one is the larger one of the 2. I have found the larger one of the 2 to actually be the best one when it comes to actually filtering various levels of skim, you know, from light to sort of dark. But this one, the smaller one of the 2, I've only been able to get it to skim a light tea color, which means that it ends up getting full within a day to maybe 2 days tops. And I have not been able to get it darker. So it's definitely a troublesome one because I was really hopeful on these. I really like Sea brands. And you know, I'm definitely gonna make a video dedicated to nano skimmers, so that way I can, you know, give my experience and my information when it comes to nano skimmers and which one I think is the best in the market from what I've used. But for now, I'm just gonna say that the Sea Shark has been doing its job, but I wish I had more controllability when it came to how dark the skim mate would be inside. Once it passes through those 2, it comes into this area where I have 2 return pumps that came with the tank, and then UV sterilizer, which on one end over here will be where it intakes it from, and then the other end will be where it brings it back to. I used to use the chambers here that are where the skimmers are at as an inlet, and then let it out here where the return pumps were at. but because I needed the space for the skimmers, I ended up having to just put both in here, one on each end. And then you'll notice here I also have the new Toonsy Osmolator 3 Nano version, and it's been working okay. I will say that it is definitely for nanos, because if there was too much evaporation and for whatever reason this tank had to replace the evaporation water, this is programmed to only go like 60 something seconds. And if it doesn't fill it up to the line that it needs to be at in those seconds, then it would time out and give me an error. Unfortunately, the nano version does not have an alarm, so it was just me by chance hearing all the splashing and then coming over here to check to see what was going on, and I would notice that the water level was very low, which is a big reason why you don't want to put a heater in this area, because this is the part that evaporates, and if this happens, you will definitely mess something up when it comes to that heater. All right, so that being said, I actually recently found out that the Toonsy Osmolator 3, there's 2 ways to program it. And all it takes is for you to turn it on and off 3 times, semi-fast, and then that will set it to the mode where instead of timing out in the 60 or 70 something seconds, it will time out in double that time. And that tells me that then this, because of that, you can actually use this on a bigger tank than what it's recommended. I believe what they recommend is up to a 66 gallons. I'm unscripted here and just talking from in here. So, but yeah, it does double the time. And so I'm thinking that if that's the case, I wouldn't go over 100 gallons for sure, because this is 80 gallons, and in level 1 definitely was having a hard time keeping up with it. But now that I've changed it to level 2 where it's double the time, the timeout period, then I'm thinking that that will actually eliminate where it errors out because it's been on for too long, right? So I'll definitely keep y'all posted on that and put a separate review on ATOs, because I've had my share of ATOs, and I'm gonna tell you one thing, I'm a spoiler alert. I think I might end up switching all of my ATOs to these Toonsy ones, and I will definitely let you know why in one of my future videos. Let me know if that's something you're interested in. If you are, I'll make sure to work on it ASAP. If not, I'll just go with my schedule. It's definitely something that I'm considering now, and maybe Toonsy's watching and says, hey Dennis, you've already bought 3, let me sponsor you for the rest of the tanks. That would be actually pretty nice. Let's go back to this tank. So right now this tank is powered by 2 Nero 5s and then 1 Higer Gyra that I have running over the top. And I think honestly for an LPS tank, it's definitely been working. You see the motion of these Ganies and some of those hammers up there, and you know, more Ganies over there, and then we'll find more torches right here. Excuse the one that died. Sometimes these things are very unexplainable. So all the other ones are looking great, puffy, and you can see some of the skin on the bottom of that, you know, really becoming very healthy in this tank. But again, then I can't explain ones like that one right there. The scape has remained the same, where I kind of to the best of my DIY ability, I wanted to do something like in the freshwater area where, you know, they'll put some kind of these dragon rocks, or I forgot what they're called, and then on this side is packed to the top, and then a little valley in the middle. Now I do have corals in the middle, and eventually I will be mounting them elsewhere in this scape, and the goal is to leave that valley that way, you know, empty, and just kind of having everything here lead into that. And maybe I didn't do the best job that one of those professional scapers would do, but I did my best, and I'm actually very happy with it. Which brings me to another point. If you're happy with whatever purchase you're making, regardless of what others say, whether it was expensive or not, look, what matters is, are you happy? If you're not, then don't purchase it at that price. You know, wait for something else to come along. But man, this Facebook can get wild sometimes. Let's see, so this tank has actually filled up a lot more with corals, as you can see, but I've paused a little bit here because I have a lot of things going on in my personal life, and figured I can just let it be, let it grow, and really just focus on water changes and cleaning the glass. For the most part, that's all I'm doing. I dose alkalinity by itself and this is another review we're gonna do, when the KH Keeper Plus from Reef Factory lets me know when the alkalinity is low. I try to keep up with it that way, and every once in a while I'll do calcium and magnesium tests. But the reality is that I do water changes here. I try to for every week, but without missing. I for sure do every 2 weeks. And I believe that, you know, that keeps up with calcium and magnesium. I do about 50% water changes every time, just because it's that easy. I probably could do less, and I'm thinking of doing less just to save on water and salt and then see how that goes. But for now, everything's been working, and why change it? In the bottom, you'll see a stand, a black stand. Let's see, let me bring y'all some light for those that are interested in seeing this. In the bottom, you see this white APS stand. I love it because it's very lightweight. It's aluminum with, I'm not sure if those are plastic, acrylic, or glass panels. I'm guessing acrylic, and I can see some of these a bit scratched, as you can see right there. But in here, oh man, y'all gonna have to excuse me, and I'm gonna get to it one day. You'll see a rat's nest, and you'll see my auto top off container that is a 20-gallon auto top off, and I only have to fill it up maybe every 3 weeks. And my UV sterilizer, which I'm using the Vectron from TMC, hard to see right there, that I hooked up. So far so good. I mean, no complaints there. Keeps the water clear. Don't really have to use carbon that much. Feel that it's doing its job. Now, as far as what they say that the lining that they use for the quartz sleeve produces ozone, I haven't, I turned it on and I left it on, and I'm happy with it. But it claims that because of the liner, it creates a small dose of like ozone or something like that. I couldn't tell you whether it's true or not. I don't have anything to test that with, if it's even testable. But I will tell you that the water's been clean and the fish have been super healthy in here. I recently added the orange back wrasse. This actually wasn't the 310 gallons for those that pay attention. But because I want to make this mainly a wrasse tank, I had an opportunity to be able to take them out to reduce the load over there and increase the load in here, because this will be the 4th fish in here. At some point, I do want to add some of those peppermint cardinals, I think is what they're called. A school of them, being that I think they're small enough and they would look beautifully in this tank. And honestly, I think that's where we're at as far as an update goes. The lights that I use here are the Ecotech Radion XR15 G5 blues. If I could do it again, I would get the pros. And I have really started loving the wider spectrum on these lights. And the only reason why this tank looks this white on camera is because I had to adjust the spectrum in order to be able to film and not having to put a filter on the camera so that you can see what I see. But it's not, when you put the AB plus spectrum, it's not what it actually normally is. And the fact that these are blues, it has a lot more blues than whites. So if I were to try to adjust this to look like this during the daytime, I'd have to measure par. I have a feeling that it wouldn't be as high par, because again, the blues have more blue LEDs versus the pros have more white. So if I were able to do it again, I would definitely end up doing the pro, so that I have that ability of using more white during the daytime and ramping it up and down from blues to blues at nighttime. Sometimes I feel like 2 lights may not be enough, but it really is. But to the eye, it looks as maybe dim as it actually looks on camera. I think it looks a little dim. And I wish it looked a little bit brighter in here. So I'm thinking of either adding a bar and maybe get the Reef Crest one from Quanta Lights, the Helix Reef Crest one, that would add that wider spectrum, or adding a 3rd XR15 blue G5s. I actually have 2 in storage because I haven't really needed them, and I've been thinking of selling them. But then my hoarder self, and also, hey, what if one of these goes bad? Then I'll have a backup, kicks in, and then years pass and they're still sitting there, and I could have made a little extra money to buy something different. So I don't know. It's either adding a 3rd light to just not to increase the part, but to increase the coverage, and hoping that it looks a little bit brighter in here. Maybe then I can adjust it to where it's this white during the day and then blue at night, or adding a bar. Now, I always like new stuff, right? And so Quanta is a new company that produces lights at a very affordable price, and they're very comparable to the brand name ones. Although I could add a 3rd XR15, I'm pushing more towards the bar, right? I think I want to say that it's under $200 for the bar, which is very, very affordable, to be honest. Which is another topic. Every time I mention something, I remember of topics that I've been wanting to discuss, but this is not the topic for today. But the other thing that I want to discuss is reefing expensive? And to be honest, it irks me when I hear people say, no, it's not. When you hear bulk reef supply say, no, it's not. The reality of the fact is that it can be. And even on the cheapest budget, like you say, hey, go find used equipment or whatever, you end up spending maybe $500 to get everything right, minimum. And while that's cheaper than most, yes, I will agree that that you can end up spending thousands of dollars in equipment and tanks and blah, 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 blah. And when you compare it to that, yes, absolutely, you know, you could do it cheaper. But I remember not too long ago being on a budget that even $500 to me was way too much. So to me, it's very subjective to say, hey, if you can, you know, it's cheap. You could do it cheap. You could do it cheaper, but you cannot do it cheap. It's still $500 is still a high number for a lot. And we just don't realize that as people that, you know, maybe are able to just spend 500 bucks. But again, that can be a talk that we can have on a different episode. And for now, what I want to get into now, this is the end of the update for this tank. For those that only care to really hear how this tank was doing, you know, I'll bring you up close. And here is your update. Let me know if you have any comments, questions, or concerns. If you are still with me so far and you have not subscribed yet, you need to consider subscribing. You need to consider hitting that like button. And I do realize that you need an account with YouTube in order to be able to like, subscribe, and all that. So make Queen City Reefs the reason why you created an account. I truly, truly appreciate it. The discussion we're about to have is around, is reefing hard? Is the reefing hobby hard? And that's another thing that I don't like the answer to when I hear from BRS, where they say, no, it's not. No, it's not. You know, it can be easy. That's also subjective, man, because to me, and this is just my opinion, you can disagree with me, you can give me different point of views in the comments, you know, I welcome those because sometimes I can be too hard-headed or can be too, you know, like sort of like tunnel vision where you only see it one way until somebody else tells you a different way and you're like, oh, you know what, I didn't think about it that way. But right now, without talking to y'all yet, I will tell you that reefing is hard. It is not an easy hobby, but I don't think any hobby is, right? And I'm not going to sit here and tell you about other hobbies and kind of compare it to that. But I think every hobby has this little difficulty in it. And it just depends if you're the person that truly is invested, that truly is interested, and that is not just saying, oh, look, pretty corals. I want to put one in my house and then expect it to just flourish without any attention at all. That being said, reefing can get easier. Yes. Some people are like, oh man, the only parameters you have to worry about is calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium. But even that, in the beginning, as a beginner, think about it. Really think before you got into the hobby, when you first started knowing about, you know, saltwater and what it took and having to measure parameters and so on and so forth, did you not think, man, that's a lot? Every person I mentioned this hobby to and what I do on a daily, on a weekly, on a monthly, that has nothing to do with the aquatic world at all, man, will tell you that hell no, they do not want to be part of this because it is too much. It is too hard. It is too complicated. And I agree. I'm sorry for those that, you know, want to sell something else to somebody else. I do. But it is a very rewarding one. It's a rewarding hobby because then you get to see all these corals that would normally just be in the ocean in their specific parts of the world. You get to see them here in your home in the middle of, in my case, North Carolina, you know, outside of 45-degree weather. You know, it's just crazy to me when you really think about it. You know, these fish that are captured, you know, yes, I'm not going to tell you that sometimes I don't think about, wow, you know, poor fish. But supposedly there's been some studies that, you know, where they measure different vitals of the fish and they seem to be less stressed in a aquarium than they are in the ocean and therefore get to live longer and so on and so forth. But we'll never know, right? We don't have their brains. We don't sit there and think what they're thinking. Although I do feel like some people just see them as fish, I honestly feel that these are a very smart creature. Maybe not to the extent of a dog, but way smarter than we believe them to be. And therefore, it is very sad to me, at least when I end up losing one, because yes, I do think about the fact that, hey, could I have done things better? You know, could he have had a better chance in the wild or whatever the case is? But anyways, and so then we go to the fact that, yes, reefing can be hard. It is hard. You know, you literally think about it. You have to mix salt water. You know, I think if anything, you just have to be patient and be consistent. And the hardest thing there is in reefing, the hardest part of reefing, I believe it to be consistency. being consistent. You have to be consistent. You have to maintain this tank on a, whatever you want it to be your schedule. But depending on the corals that you have, will depend on that, how often you have to be consistent, how often you have to check this, check that, or whatever the case is. But in average cases, without getting into the softies, the LPS, the SPS, you have to be consistent. And I think the standard would be check your parameters once a week, do water changes, to start off with, at least until you really get the hang of it and get to know your tank. Do it at least once a week, whether it's 10%, 15%, or 20%. You have to actually get to know your tank in order to then understand how it works and whether the different methods that you want to use will work for your tank. But think about it. You have to do water changes. You have to measure the salt. You have to have the right components. Even I, who've been in the hobby for 15 years or more, I have recently messed up the salinity because I'm trusting one device and I should really be, having a backup to check that device with, right? Imagine brand new people that someone tells them, hey, here, use this. And you probably wouldn't even use that, but they're being told that. And that's how I learned, So my point is it's harder than what you make it seem. And I think that a lot of us, I'm going to use my job as an example. When I do my job, when I'm at work and I'm doing the security analysis that I have to do within our billing system, I have to look at a lot of configuration and all that to determine whether something's a risk or not. To me, that's easy. But I bet you anything, if I put those documents in front of your face, you would be like, what the heck is this? What does this mean? It took time, patience, training, and consistency in order for me to be able to learn what I do now. And it applies to almost everything in life, and especially in this hobby. When I say consistency is the key thing that you have to be able to do and keep up with it, is because it doesn't matter what you're talking about in this tank, you have to be consistent at it, right? You have to be consistent at feeding your fish or else they'll die. You have to be consistently checking water, parameters, doing water changes. I know that there's people that will say you don't ever have to do a water change, but if you're a beginner and to be successful, do water changes so that you can then get used to what you're doing, how it works, how it makes your tank feel. And then if you feel like later down the road you don't want to make water changes, then, test that out. I mean, I think we're all testers, right? We're tinkering with things to see if it works better, if it doesn't, and then share that information with many others that then follow you or unfortunately gripe at you and tell you, no, that's not the way to do it, which is also wrong. But, that's, again, another conversation. If you're going to take anything away from what I just mentioned, I would say is if you're going to get into this hobby, and this is something that really captures you and your body and soul and all that, then the number one thing to really think about and you have to keep up with is your consistency on every aspect of this. You are literally keeping sensitive animals that, again, back to the beginning of the conversation, belong in the ocean, and not just one part of the ocean, several parts of the ocean across the world, several fish across the world. And you're trying to maintain that in whether it's a 5-gallon Pico, 20-gallon Nano, 80-gallon Standard, whatever the case may be. You're trying to keep these sensitive animals in a whole ecosystem in balance in your home in the middle of North Carolina at 35, 45 degree weather outside. Tell me how the heck is that not complicated? Now, the fact that we all have been in this, if you're watching this and you know that you've been in this hobby for so long, then this, of course, is going to be easy for you. But golly, don't sit there and gripe at others that are asking that same question over and over, because to them, it's the first time they ask it. You, because you've been in this for 15 years, you've heard that same question over and over so many times. I get it. It can get aggravating, but remember, you were there once. So we want to keep people in the hobby, and if they're asking even dumb questions, hey, be nice, respond to it and tell them, hey, that's not the right question. The right question should be blah, 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 whatever. But in order to be able to stay in this hobby, you got to be consistent, plain and simple. Consistent with everything you do, with the maintenance, with the fish keeping, the feeding, the dosing if you need to dose, The dipping the corals, you know, that's another subject in itself. Everything, you know, just everything that you have to do. The cleaning your skimmers, the cleaning your equipment. People seem to think that these equipments are supposed to last forever. Well, some may, but you have to consistently be cleaning them, whether it's a schedule of once every 6 months, once a year, whatever the case may be. You'll get to know your equipment and know when you need to clean it, and then keep that consistent schedule for it. We're dealing with saltwater here. And I know you're really debating on subscribing, so just go ahead, subscribe. Hit the little bell icon so that you're notified for every video that I put out. And I think that's all I got. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you on the next one.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and